Tonight on CFTK-TV News, the Prince Rupert RCMP are trying to find a wanted man. A bike rodeo was held in the city of Terrace not too long ago, and we'll look into a presentation of a brain injury-related bill.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Good evening, I'm Cale Baslett, and here's what's making the news in the Northwest and beyond for today. Recently, Bill C-277, an act to establish a national strategy on brain injury, was presented in the House of Commons. CFTK-TV's Jaylene Matthews has more on what kind of impacts this bill should make.
It's a bill that promises to make a difference in the lives of Canadians. The proposal to create an integrated national strategy on brain injury that supports awareness, prevention, and treatment. Yvonne Nielsen is a longtime advocate for brain injury awareness.
I have a brain injury, and I was in a serious car crash close to 37 years ago, and for me, I came back to Terrace, and nobody knew what a brain injury is, and so I went to the brain injury conferences in Vancouver and in different places in BC and then across the country, and I brought information back. And one of the tools, like, I learned about myself as well as I brought information back to the community of Terrace.
She says she's attended activity groups with brain injury societies in other parts of the province, but they don't exist yet in Terrace.
When I've gone to brain injury conferences, I've been at Naramata, and one year they had kayaking, and so I went and tried that out, and then we did volleyball, and we were all in the same physical problems, so we all did the same thing. Like, we all had and we did lawn bowling and stuff, and that's what we need is activities and stuff.
MP Taylor Backrack says right now care is fragmented.
People are working in silos at the federal, provincial, and local government levels. There are advocacy groups out there who are doing incredible work with very little funding. And the work around the prevention and the management and the treatment of brain injuries is still at a point where it could use a lot of support.
Bill C-277 was put forth by MP Alistair McGregor back in October and passed unanimously at the second reading in June. It will next go to committee for review. Yvonne says there's more awareness now compared to 37 years ago when she was injured, but there's still progress to be made.
And the awareness is getting out, but still you need to change people's attitudes.
For CFTK-TV News in Terrace, I'm Jaylene Matthews.
In a very recent release that came out on their website, the Prince Rupert RCMP disclosed that they are currently seeking out a wanted man. This time, the man that the police are in the midst of trying to find is named Zachary Andre Peter Wagner, and he is a 35-year-old wanted man on the charges of sexual assault as well as sexual interference. Wagner's description is that of a Caucasian male who measures in at about 6'3", while weighing around 185 pounds and having both brown hair as well as gray eyes. Those who might have any information that could lead to the capture of Wagner, or at least his discovery, you're asked to call the Prince Rupert RCMP at 250-624-2136. With the amount of heat that Terrace has experienced as of late, you might believe that it would make a lot of sense for the city to open up a cooling center as they did in years past. And while a plan was in place for Terrace to utilize money from the BC provincial government to use Caleb's community space, known as the Garage, as the center for cooling, but the city was not able to find enough people to properly staff it. To try and rectify this, both Terrace as well as its partner agencies are looking for anyone to fill up staff spaces and have apparently encouraged people for the time being to use other public spaces with air conditioning to cool off, like the public library, in addition to volunteer Terrace. The terrace bike rodeo that was recently held earlier in the month appeared to register as quite the success for the community. Here's CFTK's Damian Smith with more information on what happened at the event.
This past weekend, the annual Terrace Bike Rodeo was underway as families and children met up at the Sportsplex. Mechanics from the Fixed Cyclery and Cafe made thorough inspections on each bike to make sure every child had a safe ride, and the Northern Brain Injury Association contributed an assortment of helmets to make sure that the bikers had safety. Emergency service workers from the Greater Terrace area sported their uniforms at this occasion, helping guide the bikers during their practice time. And even some raffle winners who will go home with a new supercycle donated by the Terrace Canadian Tire. From CFTK-TV, I'm Damian Smith.
Coming up next, an alliance has formed between BC and Newfoundland for a lawsuit against the federal government. Welcome back. BC is bracing for a surge in wildfire activity in the days ahead. Thunderstorms and wind is in the forecast that also includes record-setting heat. There's already been some tense moments when a fire sparked up in the Okanagan, closing a busy highway for hours. CTV's Michelle Bernoro has more.
This is the wildfire that broke out Wednesday morning near Peachland, prompting the temporary closure of Highway 97 so crews could operate without interference.
We did have air tankers and skimmers on site earlier supporting ground crews, and they were very effective in cooling fire behavior with their retardant and water drops.
A helicopter was also bucketing water.
Crews are working from Highway 97 up the south and northern flanks of the fire, doing a hose lay and working on constructing guard to limit the spread.
The fire, suspected to be human caused, is about 1.3 hectares, but not immediately threatening any structures. But near Spence's Bridge, there's an evacuation order for the Cooks Ferry Indian Band as 2 out-of-control fires burn in the area, including the Shetland Creek wildfire.
It's burning in some really challenging terrain, and the area that it's covering is 285 hectares.
There is concern that more fires could be sparked in the coming weeks and that current fires could spread.
We are coming out of some really continued hot and dry weather and looking ahead to more heat, more dry weather in many areas of the province, accompanied by some thunderstorms and some lightning.
A 20-person crew from Nova Scotia is on the ground in BC and more supports are on the way.
On Friday, we're also looking forward to welcoming our first wave of support from Australia and New Zealand.
So far this year, 613,000 hectares has burned in our province, though fire activity is not nearly as intense as the previous year.
To this date in 2023, we had easily passed 1,000 fires. Right now, we've had just over 500 fires.
Still, the fire season is a long way from being over, and what Mother Nature will throw at us is anyone's guess. Michelle Bernoro, CTV News, Vancouver.
BC is teaming up with Newfoundland to support its lawsuit against the federal government over equalization payments. Premier David Eby is furious that Ontario is getting money from Ottawa and BC isn't. And as CTV's Shannon Patterson reports, it's likely no coincidence that it's a fight that he's chosen to join just 3 months before the BC provincial election.
BC and Newfoundland are on opposite sides of the country, but their premiers have joined forces in a battle against the federal government.
We have decided to provide our full support to Newfoundland's litigation strategy to their lawsuit around equalization.
Newfoundland has launched a constitutional challenge claiming the current federal equalization formula that's meant to ensure all provinces can provide a minimum level of service to their residents is unfair. BC agrees and is offering to help.
We'll coordinate with them on legal strategy. And in addition, British Columbia will look at whether we should be filing our own litigation in British Columbia.
Eby is taking on the feds because BC hasn't received equalization payments from Ottawa since 2007, but Ontario will receive nearly $1 billion between 2023 and 2025. He wants the funding formula changed.
The equalization formula every 5 years was supposed to be reviewed to prevent perverse outcomes like British Columbia taxpayers sending money to support Ontarians. My job is to advocate for British Columbians.
Of course, it's also an election year, and the BC Conservatives are surging in the polls.
Alberta and Saskatchewan have had very aggressive fights against or stances against the federal government over the last few years, against Justin Trudeau in particular. I think David Eby is anticipating that John Rustad and the BC Conservatives will adopt that kind of rhetoric and stance as well. He doesn't want to appear to look weak in the face of that kind of criticism. So he's really just getting out in front of BC Conservatives before they make it an issue.
We asked John Rustad if he thinks Eby is playing politics by teaming up with Newfoundland on the equalization lawsuit.
I agree that we need to make sure that equalization across this country is done right. But there's a reason why David Eby is doing that, and that's because he's driven BC's economy into the ground.
The Premier believes Ontario getting equalization payments while BC gets nothing is political.
If politics are in the way, then and we're not able to get there because of politics, then we have to go to court.
The case won't go to court anytime soon, but David Eby made sure BC jumped on board just 3 months before the provincial election. Shannon Patterson, CTV News.
BC's Highway Patrol is sending out a plea to drivers after a tragic trend of deadly crashes on our highways this summer. CTV's Abigail Turner reports on the urgent message to slow down.
BC's highways have been dangerous and deadly in the past 72 hours.
This latest plea that we're making to the public is to slow down.
This is the tragic scene in Langley, where RCMP were called early Wednesday morning. Investigators say the driver struck a road sign and continued eastbound before crashing into a tree and being thrown from their car. It happened on 80th Avenue, a stretch of road that one local says sees a slew of speeders.
You can't imagine what it's like unless you experience it, and I have. And it's just a life changer, you know, emotionally. It's just, I have a lot of empathy for this family today. You know, I couldn't imagine what they're going to go through.
It's just the latest crash in a string of Lower Mainland collisions. This two-vehicle crash in Surrey Sunday left one person dead. On Tuesday, one person was airlifted to hospital after their vehicle hit a logging truck in Maple Ridge. Hours later, these two semis collided along Highway 17 at 116th Avenue in Surrey. 3 people were injured. One person remains in hospital. Police believe speed may have been a factor.
We're stopping an incredible high number of excessive speeders across the province right now.
132 tickets were issued so far this month by BC Highway Patrol for drivers going 40 kilometers or more above the posted limit.
We often see this where the speeds creep up a bit. People feel a little bit more comfortable.
Last year, there were 331 deaths from vehicle crashes, 110 of those during the summer months.
Just people slow down, man. You know, don't be in a hurry.
So far this July, there have been 30 people killed on BC highways, nearly 2 deaths per day. And with plenty more summer left this season, it's a stark reminder to be smart behind the wheel. Abigail Turner, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to tonight's weather, the North Coast will likely deal with a chance of showers plus a low at 14 degrees. The Terrace-Kitimat area is said to see a chance of showers too, as well as a low at 15 degrees. And the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District should also see a chance of showers with their own low at 9 degrees. On the North Coast, their next week or so will deal mainly with rain and clouds, but with a sunny day too, as well as a high bouncing from 19 to 14 degrees. In the Terrace-Kitimat area, the week for them will see a bit more mixed sunny and cloudy days, while the high shifts between 29 and 18 degrees. And in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, the upcoming week will also likely deal with a bit more sun, but still some clouds and rain too, and the high will encounter temps ranging from 31 to 19 degrees. Checking out the highways now, visit Drive BC for the latest and up-to-date conditions, and as always, drive safe out there. On Highway 16, there is utility work, bridge maintenance, construction work, pothole repairs, and electrical maintenance. Highway 118 has some ditching as well as bridge construction. Highway 37 has some paving operations, mowing, roadside brushing, maintenance, and a planned vehicle recovery. And there is some maintenance on the Nishka Highway. And this is what the roads were looking like this afternoon around the region from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come is a discussion between Canada's premiers over how the U.S. election could play out. Welcome back. Concerns about the possibility of a Donald Trump win in the upcoming U.S. election took center stage on the final day of the Premier's Conference in Halifax. As CTV's Judy Trid explains, it prompted a united call among those gathered to meet the 2% NATO target as soon as possible.
The 13 premiers are all united in their calls for Canada to meet its 2% GDP NATO defense spending target as soon as possible as a way to safeguard the country's economic interests.
I think it's broader for Canada in its relationship with the United States. We're significant trading partners. And we want them to respect us.
Bonjour tout le monde.
At last week's NATO summit, after mounting pressure from allies, the Prime Minister announced a 2032 date for reaching that obligation, too far away for premiers who want the date shortened from 8 years to 4.
I think the timeline we have to think about is the next administration, whoever that may be, in the United States of America. So let's hit that target in the next 4 years with a credible plan to do so.
The premiers have been watching Donald Trump's presidential race and his surge in momentum. They're concerned about a déjà vu. When Trump was first elected in 2016, he put in place an America First policy and slapped tariffs on Canadian exports, threatening the economy of each province.
We do $500 billion of trade. Ontario alone with the U.S. would be their third largest trading partner.
Earlier this year, Trump reiterated his position that the U.S. would not defend any allies that didn't meet the NATO obligation. Currently, Canada's annual defense budget is around $30 billion. Getting to 2% could require $15 billion more a year.
In what is a very unrestful world, we're seeing conflicts in Eastern Europe and in other areas of the world that I think that the investment is necessary.
The premiers say, regardless of who gets elected, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, Canada should meet its NATO targets. Back here in Canada, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is not committing to meeting the NATO target should he become the next Prime Minister. Judy Trin, CTV News, Halifax.
There's a new scam to warn you about. You may have seen missing people posters circulating on social media, but police say that some of these posts aren't real. CTV's Danton Unger explains what scammers are after and how to avoid being fooled.
It may tug on your heartstrings, and you may be trying to help. But that's exactly what Facebook scammers are counting on.
This has been a question for an awful long time now, this idea of what is real and what is fake on the internet.
Facebook posts have started circulating showing apparent missing persons, asking everyone to share. The problem is, it may be a scam. Take this post, for example. It was shared to the Brandon Buy and Sell Facebook group. The poster says their 5-year-old daughter went out for a bike ride and hasn't returned. It says a silver alert has been activated and is asking people to share the post. Here's another one. This one, a missing 14-year-old girl who hasn't been seen for 48 hours. This one has 26,000 people sharing it. But Brandon police say the people in these posts don't exist, and the posts themselves are likely scams.
It's a bait and switch, essentially. So what these scammers are doing is they are putting out a post that pulls on the heartstrings of people, be it a injured animal or a lost and hurt child. And with that, it gets a wide spread.
But what do scammers hope to accomplish with these posts?
On the surface, it seems to be a benign post.
David Gerhard, head of the University of Manitoba's Computer Science Department, says once you've shared the post and forgotten about it, the scammers will come back and change it.
Instead of a missing person, now it's a real estate opportunity or a multi-level marketing scheme or, buy this Bitcoin or whatever it is. Some way to steal money or steal information or to hack an account, right? That's the scam.
The problem is, not all Facebook posts about missing people are scams.
That's where this becomes insidious, because then people become nervous about sharing these things because they wonder if it's real or not.
And now we turn our attention to the stock markets. The Canadian dollar is down 6/100ths of a cent. The price of gold is down $3.50. Oil is down 14 cents. Natural gas is up 9 cents. Aluminum is down $4. In Toronto, the TSX is down 124.41 points. The Venture Index is down 9.32. In New York, the Dow Jones is down 533.06, and Nasdaq is down 125.22. Still ahead is a special look at diving work conducted by armed forces. Welcome back. We are getting a rare look tonight at the skills of a highly specialized unit within the armed forces tucked away at CFB Esquimalt. Much of their work is invisible because it happens underwater. CTV's Anna McMillan takes us to the training ground for the clearance diving team.
Ask a diver with the Canadian Armed Forces what they're scared of, and they'll tell you.
Spiders, doing interviews.
But explosives, not so much.
When everyone's running away from a bomb, you're the one running towards it.
Or diving towards it.
It's a fun job.
Here in the waters off Metchosin, Fleet Diving Unit Pacific is practicing underwater demolitions.
Underwater demolitions is using explosives to clear targets and hazards that are in the water.
About a dozen trainees are learning how to get rid of those hazards, such as old mines from the Second World War.
So it's a mock scenario that they're going to have to come in on an improvised shape or landmine or moored mine, and they're going to have to blow that up.
They build their own explosives, pool noodle and all, to make that happen.
You see where it is?
This is a bubble curtain, which keeps marine life out of the training area.
We also have a safety boat just outside the bay here to ensure that either there's no boat traffic coming in. We also have marine mammal observers to make sure that we're not impacting the environment or the mammals that could come by as well.
Ensuring they're not around to hear the sound of success.
We do this in order to make the world a safer place with the demining aspect, and we don't want any sea mines drifting into shipping lanes or onto beaches where it could harm civilians.
They have members on their way to the Baltic to get rid of legacy war mines, and the work happens locally too. The Explosive Ordnance Disposal Team responds to about 100 calls in BC a year, on land and in the water.
Together we find a solution and you get to see the outcome of that solution.
For trainees, that outcome is a crispy pool noodle and the understanding that they're on their way to making marine environments safe. Anna McMillan, CTV News, Metchosin.
The Vancouver Aquarium Marine Mammal Rescue Society is now taking care of 2 fragile sea otter pups at the same time after a second animal was found abandoned in BC waters. The society says the latest rescue, named Luda, was found on July 13th on Vargas Island near Tofino, and part of her umbilical cord was still attached at the time. Rescuers say the pup is in critical condition and receiving round-the-clock care, as they can't swim, hunt, or regulate their body temperature on their own at this age. Last month, another sea otter baby was rescued near Tofino after apparently being abandoned by its mother, and rescuers say caring for 2 pups at once will create significant challenges. That's all of our news for now. From all of us here at CFTK-TV News, I'm Kale Maslin. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.